Good evening, everyone. Welcome to On Deck here on FTSN. I'm Russ Morgan. Thank you for joining me tonight. Always please remember, like, comment, subscribe. Every comment, I want comments. Sometimes I've been talking to my producers. Sometimes I was doing hosting our college football podcast yesterday, and Touchdown in Paradise airs Wednesday afternoon, sometimes Wednesday night. But we record it, and I was hosting and subbing in for the guy Justin who does it, and even I was talking to my producer. He's like, "Dude, you looked more into it." So sometimes I'm like, "Dude, it was so much easier to do because if I had a question to ask, I'd get an answer. Sometimes I don't hear. So please, if you're on there, you got something to say. I always think it sometimes helps me out. So I always love questions. Hey, tonight we're gonna kick it off a little New York Mets offseason needs, outlook for the Mets, what's going on. I do want to throw in, we've had a little baseball news. Baseball post offseason usually goes really slow. We did have a little news. Angels have signed a couple players. Got Kyle Hendricks. They got Travis d'Arnaud from the Braves. Jorge Soler, who is with Braves. He's been with the Marlins. He's been with and they got the lefty from Toronto. I don't know how to say his last name. They signed him this past week, but the big one was Blake Snell signed with the Dodgers. I know what you guys are saying. Wow, the Dodgers just get another piece. Snell off that kind of down off season we saw last year with Scott Boras. He doesn't sign late into spring training, and might have hurt his. I think it hurt his first half because pitchers are. You think baseball players are creatures of habit. Pitchers, they got to get in their zone. I think it hurt his first half. He picks up more, but he signed with the Dodgers yesterday, 5 years, $185 million. I know what everybody's saying. Wow, the Dodgers just add. Can you imagine that rotation with Tyler Glass now stays healthy, Yamamoto, you get Shohei back, you had Blake Snell, and then throw in you Dustin May come back, Tony Gonsolin might come back, and then you got the great Clayton Kershaw. So it's like, wow, just add more. I will say on that note, a lot of those guys have been injury prone. Dolphins Thirsty, thanks for tuning in. How we doing tonight? On that note with the Dodgers, a lot of those guys have been injury prone. Baseball doesn't always work out that way where you pay the most money and you're just going to win. So I am a little hopeful it doesn't always work out that way. We're gonna why are we gonna talk about the Red Sox? They're doing nothing. No, we're gonna get into some Red Sox next week. They're in big on some big players. So I'm gonna get into the Red Sox this week. I'm gonna do a rundown on all those teams on Mount Soto because that's a hot name. Soto's a hot name. We're gonna kick it off with New York Mets. Tuned in last week. We did a little more NL East coverage. We did the offseason outlook. Who are they going for the Miami Marlins? So we're going to stick with that NL East vibe. We're going with the New York Mets. Mets, solid year for the Mets. Lost in the NLCS to the Dodgers. Don't get me started on Soto and the Yankees. I'm trying to go Soto and the Mets because I will go off on Soto and the Yankees, Gary, all day. I'm gonna go with the Mets stuff right now, and I'm gonna get to your question though because I got a lot of thoughts about that. I'm gonna have a full episode on the Yankees too in a couple weeks, possibly. If we get a Soto signing, then that's gonna be the lead news, and that will be the majority of the show, but. Mets had a solid year. They started off really slow, but end of the year, 87-73. Took the Braves, got that 1-2 in that little playoff. Ended up losing 4-2 to the Dodgers. I think it was a pretty solid year. They got some notable players in free agency, though. Obviously they're going to. Pete Alonso's on the market. Pete Alonso will have a lot there'll be a lot of teams on Pete Alonso. We've already seen it. Teams checking in on Pete Alonso. Sean Manaea, who is a massive piece of that playoffs, massive piece, probably the ace of that staff when they lose their Asian pitcher was Senga, or they lose him. So he was that ace, and he comes from that nasty arm angle. I love when I'm watching Manaea and he's coming from that 3/4 arm angle all the way over. It's like, he comes from that angle. I mean, I was a left-handed hitter, so that guy's coming from that angle, throwing that left-handed hitter. It was insane. You lose Luis Severino, kind of had a bounce back year too. He was down with you. Started off really hot when he was with the Yankees. Guy I love. We'll get Dolphin Thirsty. We'll give you a little love on Luis Severino. Luis Severino started off really strong and then started kind of getting away. When he was pitching, he started, instead of keeping it in, was getting it away. I'll tell you, who was the one who fixed his windup? Pedro Martinez said, hey, you're getting it out here. You're bringing it out here. You're kind of tipping your pitches. Keep it close in, Pedro. Pedro drove me nuts. Yankees are your daddy, Pedro, but unbelievable pitcher. I love him on the pregame and postgame and on TBS. I think Pedro's super knowledgeable. Everything I hear, I love Pedro Martinez on it. He's great. But, I mean, Luis Severino, so there's their 1-2. What is it? Code Senega. He only pitched 10 in the third. So that was a guy they signed last offseason who was probably supposed to be your one of your aces. And you lose Jose Quintana. Manaea, I think Manaea is going to be a tough, F off. I think Manaea is going to be a tough guy they get back. They're going to have to re-sign. They're going to have to go 3-4 years for Manaea. I think he's going to get a lot of interest after the year he had. What was Manaea's stats? I think he was 13. I got it here. What was he? Manaea. Shoot, I had Manaea's stats. I'm driving me nuts. When I can't find my stats on my notes, it drives me nuts. But he was 2-1 in the playoffs. I think Manaea is going to be a 3-4 year deal where they're going to have to go 4 years because this is guy ace of the staff. He showed he can do it. Left-handed guy coming from all the way on the left side of the mound, bringing it over. That's a nasty arm angle to hit from. I think you're going to have to go at least 3 to 4 years. I think he's going to get some serious looks after he had that, that up and down year with the Giants the year before. He was big with the A's when they, he was the dude with the A's. I think they're going to have to re-sign him unless they want to go big. On the offensive side, obviously, Francisco Lindor is one of the best shortstops in baseball. Defensively great. Had an MVP type of performance year. Was great, but you lose Jeff McNeil, who had a batting championship. Luis Angel Acuna comes in. What are you going to do with McNeil during the offseason? Because you got to get Acuna some at bats because he showed he could get some. He's got enough to hit major league pitching. So what are you going to do there, Gary? I have not forgot about you, Gary. At the end of this, I'm going to give you my opinions on Juan Soto because I've got a lot of thoughts on what could happen for Juan Soto. But I mean, and they re-sign, they keep Tyrone Taylor, from Torrance High School in Torrance, California, right down the street from where I grew up. Couple years went 2012 Torrance High School, got drafted. Couple years after me, which produced some players. Gary, I don't know if you know this name. I don't know if you remember this name. If you're in on Yankees draft, Angelo Gumps. He was 2010 out of Torrance High School. Yankees second round pick. First rounder didn't end up panning out, but he didn't pan out either. Yeah, don't ruin it, Dolphins Thirsty. Don't ruin it. But, I mean, you got 3 key pitchers hitting the market. And what are they going to do with the market on that? I mean, obviously you have Senga, or if I say his name wrong, the Asian pitcher from Japan, being your guy. He only throws 10 in the third innings. You got Paul Blackburn, you got Meagle. That's not going to get it done. So what are they going to do? Obviously, the big news for the Mets is Juan Soto. Steve Cohen already said he's willing to pay, and he's willing to pay big. And we've seen it in the past. The way he went big on Verlander and Scherzer in 2021, he went big. He didn't care if they were old. He went big, and it didn't pan out. But I think with Soto, he's willing to go big. I think the one thing with Soto is he's 26. He's 26, so he is right in the prime. I think Cohen's willing to spend. He's willing to spend big. He's reports of saying he's willing to go $50 million higher than the $50 million more than the highest bid. So I think he is willing. He wants to bring winning. He wants to bring Soto to Queens. He wants to bring him to Queens. I predict he ends up with the Mets. And I'm a diehard Yankees fan. I'm a nut job Yankees fan. If you've ever watched the show, if you watched the World Series episodes, I was losing my mind. But I'm the biggest critic of the Yankees. I think he ends up in New York with the Mets, though. With the Mets. I think Steve Cohen does not care about that salary cap, does not care about paying the luxury tax. He is willing to pay, and he will do whatever it takes. I think he ends up with the Mets. My guess is he gets 15 years, 650 million over 15 years, averaging 50 to 60 million. So, I mean, that's a lot to just give to one guy. In my opinion, if you watch the World Series, he's a DH. He is a DH. Do you want to pay a DH $50 to $60 million a year? $50 or $60 for a guy. In my opinion, if you watch that World Series, he was one of the. I'm not going to say he was the main reason. I think he had an unbelievable offensive postseason. I was talking to what I'm from Southern California. My dad is from New York. I hate every team in LA. I do not like one. Oh, he'll outbid. He's the richest owner in baseball. He'll outbid him. I don't like one team in LA, and I'm from Southern California. My dad is from Yonkers, Bronxville, New York. I'm a Jets fan and a Yankees fan. Anybody brings up in my life, oh, you just like winning teams? Well, I'm a effing Jets fan. So if I was, I mean, I'm not saying much right now. Not saying much right now because the Giants suck. But if I was just about winning, I'd be a Giants fan. I love being a Jets fan. I bleed green. I bleed pinstripes. But you can't say I'm a front runner because I'm a freaking Jets fan. And the Yankees haven't won since 2009 anyways. This is the first World Series in 15 years. So, I mean, we haven't really been back. It was good. It was good when I was young. When I was a kid, I mean, I remember glimpses of 96. I remember glimpses of 97 because, I mean, I was, 5 in 96. Just turning 5. 97, not much, but I do remember us losing. 98 is probably the first full year. So, I mean, from 98 to 2000 was phenomenal. And, 2001 was painful. Us losing the Marlins in 03 was painful. 2001 was even more painful because, of course, you bring in the best closer in MLB history. No one's ever going to beat Mariano, and Luis Gonzalez is still close his eyes and just hit a little dink shit-ass pop-up, and it falls because the cutter goes into the lefties. So it was great when I was early. We won in 2009. That was a great team in 2009, but we haven't been back since 2009. So, I mean, I lost my train of thought of that. But I think he goes to the Mets. I think Steve Cohen, like you said, Dolphins jersey, he's going to overpay. He's got the biggest checkbook in all of baseball. He wants to bring Soto there. So I think Soto ends up. What is that going to look like? I think he's a DH. He'll play right field. That'll be a solid outfield where you'll have Soto on right. You'll have Taylor in center. And you'll have Brandon Nimmo is one of the – I love Brandon Nimmo. I love Brandon Nimmo solid in left field. I think Brandon Nimmo is one of the best players on that team. So I think Soto ends up – I think you're going to give him 15 years, $650 million. I got my train of thought back. So I was talking to my buddy. He's a big Dodgers fan. We go back and forth. We're talking Soto. Obviously, Dodgers are in on Soto. And, he's kind of on the same wavelength as me, where he doesn't think Soto is worth that much. I think Soto, because he's 26, he's worth that much. But I literally told him, I'm like, hey, to be honest, I don't think Shohei's worth $700 million. I don't think he's worth $700 million, but that is what you're paying for guys. I think he's worth more. But if you I think it's so overvalued nowadays. These guys are asking for so much more that that it's just got there. Now, if you came to me and said, hey, well, you can get Juan Soto for $450 million, I'd take that in a heartbeat. I think that's what he's worth. I think Ohtani would be like, hey, you can get him to 8 to 10 for $550 at the most. That's more reasonable. But now it's so overvalued that people are going to be like, hey, I got to get a superstar in. I got to sell tickets. He's going to get 650. Yankees are saying they're still in on him. Hal Steinbrenner said the fan base wants him. I don't want him. I don't want him. I know you blew it there. I don't want Soto, and it won't be the worst thing in the world if they don't get Soto. Because, Gary, if you're still with me, tell me what is the one reason why the Yankees lost, and tell me what Soto's weaknesses are. They lost because of defense. The Dodgers outscored them 25-24, and that was probably all in majority of game 3. They lost game 1 because of defense. And why did the Dodgers win? They're a solid, sound defensive team. They make a fundamental baseball team. That's what baseball is. You got to be. I've said it in the past. Baseball. I view baseball as probably the one sport that you can't just win with athleticism. You have to have solid fundamentals. And the Dodgers had solid fundamentals. You saw it in game 1. That defense. Tommy Edman saved at least three runs. Judge dropping the ball. He probably won't do. He'll probably do that once in the rest of his career. That's fluke. I get more mad at Garrett Cole not covering. Excuse my language. Fucking first base. Do the thing you've done since second grade. PFPs. So I think and that's why they won. The Dodgers were a solid, fundamentally sound team. Didn't make mistakes, and the Yankees were more athletic, more talented, but less fundamentals. And that's what baseball is. You got to have the fundamentals, and especially in the postseason, it seemed like every time the Yankees made a mistake, the Dodgers made them pay, and they made them pay that one inning, and that's why they lost. So I'm off on Soto. If they can get him for 500, I'd take him. They're not getting him for 500. That's fine. He's just not solid defensively. Go sign three or four guys. I want Teoscar Hernandez, Santander in right field. I want a first baseman. Go give me Alex Bregman. Go give me Willie Adames. I think you can go give me a couple pitchers. I think that's what they need. I'm getting you. You've got me going. But I think Soto ends up signing with the Mets, and he will be in Queens, and Cohen will pay him what he wants, which is north of $600 million. And I think like he said, he's willing to pay $50 million over everybody else. He ends up in Queens, and that's a solid team. But what is that going to do to the rest of the roster? I mean, you're losing Pete Alonso, who's been a staple of that roster for a long time. Took over for one of the guys. Took over when Alonso came up. The first baseman on the Mets was Dominic Smith. Dominic Smith went to Sarah High School in Gardena, California, small Catholic high school. I went to small Catholic high school called Mary Starr in San Pedro, California. When I was a senior, he was a freshman. When he was a freshman, he batted 746. And Alonso took over, and he was definitely, a big guy. But Alonso is going to be a big ticket guy. I don't think they're going to keep both of them. If you sign Soto, I think Alonso's gone. Alonso's got a lot of people checking in on him already. Yankees checking in on him. I think both those signs, either one would be good. Little side note, they also after the Blake Snell signing, they've checked in on Max Fried. Max Fried, another California guy from Harvard Westlake High School in Studio City, California. They play baseball in Encino, beautiful little baseball field. But that program's been MLB players. You have Lucas Giolito, you have Jack Flaherty, just won a World Series. You have Max Fried, who won a World Series. You got Pete Crow Armstrong, who's going to be the face of the Cubs for the next 10 years. Who they're talking about they might trade Cody Bellinger so Crow Armstrong can get more time. But I like both those guys. I don't want the Red Sox to sign all three of those guys. But I will say if the Red Sox sign one of those two starters and Tanner Scott, that's solid because is it Tanner Hawk? I think is his name, has turned it on and kind of become that ace. That'd be a really scary one too in the AL East. Because so I think you're right on the money. Being a Red Sox fan, those would be two really solid signs after a down year. But that I don't want it. I'm a Yankees fan. I don't want it. I can't see it, but I think you're on the money. They've already checked on Fried's. Tanner Scott's a solid bullpen piece. But I want to know, my thing is what happens with Alonso? Where is he going to go if they sign Soto? I think, he's one of the best power hitting first basemen in the game. If they sign Soto, I think he pivots. He signs someone else. Yankees already checked in on him. A handful of stepped up big. Yankees already checked in on him. A handful of teams checked in on him. I take Pete Alonso at a certain price, but I think he's gone, which would be sad for the Mets fans because this guy's been a staple of the Mets organization for the last 6 years. So it'll be a big loss. But I think they pivot. I think they go with Vientos. They move him to first. They either I'm guessing Alonso. I kind of jumped a little quick. I'm guessing Alonso could sign anywhere from 8 to 10 years. This is an old guy. He's a college guy, University of Florida guy. So he's not. He didn't come straight out of high school. He started his career a little later. I think he's like 30 or 32. But I would say 320 to 350, 8 to 10 years. I think I brought it up. I think if once that happens, they pivot and put Mark Vientos at first. If I was the Mets, if I was in the Mets organization, I'd put Vientos at first. I would throw Jeff McNeil at third. If he can play third, I think he can play third because he's pretty solid defensive player. And I put Luis Angel Acuna at second, who's been there. And that would be a solid infield if you had Vientos, who stepped up big, wasn't even on the radar. Vientos wasn't even on the radar for making the team out of spring training. It came up big there late. So I think that'd be solid. Vientos, Acuna, Lindor. We all know Francisco Lindor. It's been one of the best shortstops in the game for a long time and still is. And you saw he single-handedly, lifted the Mets to the playoffs. If McNeil, either you put McNeil at third or he's in that super utility role. You got to have McNeil. I think that kind of hurt the Mets a little bit. McNeil getting hurt there late. I think that could have maybe not beat the Dodgers, Vientos was huge. Maybe not beat the Dodgers, but I think that would have evened it up if you had McNeil fully healthy with his bat in the lineup, because his bat control is insane. He's got insane bat control, and the Dodgers. What you see of the Dodgers is they pitch from their strength. Their strength was that bullpen. So if you can knock that bullpen around a little bit, and I think the Yankees were doing that. Even though they went down 0-3, they were starting to do that and knock the starting pitchers out, get to that bullpen quick, but defensively making too many mistakes. So, I mean, I think Alonso's gone if Soto signs. I think he's gone. I'm saying 320, 350 over 8 to 10 years. But after those two, where are the Mets going to go? Where are the Mets going to go? I think they got to – if you're – either way, they're going to have to, identify pitching. Where are they going to go? The rotation is barren. I mean, you got Senga, only pitched 10 in the third in the regular season. He did make a couple short starts in the NLCS. Yeah, David Peterson, who had a good year, 21 game start, 10-3, a 2.9 ERA, 12 quality starts. Oh, definitely. You're just going all for the daggers today right now. Rob, you're just going for low blows. It's killing my vibe. Talking Mets baseball right now, and you're getting me hot on the Yankees, just trying to get me riled up. But I mean, you Peterson, who had a solid year, 12 quality starts. You got Paul Blackburn, who could miss the start of the year. Tyler Meagle is another guy. I think they start going on pitching. I mean, I think the Mets got to go start right off the bat trying to re-sign Manaea, who's a huge piece in that playoffs, a huge piece of that whole team. Manaea had a hell of a year, and was 2-1 in the playoffs. So I think you got to go with him right off the bat, because I mean, if you go in. A little too late. Finally, picked it up like game 3, game 4, but too late for Judge. We needed that, all postseason. He didn't do it, and that's one thing that's going to hold him back. This was Judge, the first big stage, and he didn't step up. And you're a New York Yankees captain. A captain. You got to get it done in the playoffs. So, I mean, he got hot there late. He started picking it up, seeing the ball, but he was not seeing it. The game 1 would have made a big difference. Stanton picked up a lot, but if you're not walking Soto if Judge is swinging a hot bat. And even Austin Wells, who literally said, "What do I got to lose? I'll just swing out of my ass," and it worked out. You needed those guys to hit. But I mean, where the Mets going to go pitching? You got to start with Manaea. Maybe they can get him on a 3-4 year deal. Luis Severino is a guy. He did decline his qualifying offer. I think was like $21 million. He did decline that. I don't know if they re-sign him. I think that'd be a solid piece. I think if you get Manaea or Severino back, that's a nice number 2 starter. A nice number 2 starter. For the Mets. I think Manaea, that's a good starting point. Where are they going to go? Obviously, Blake Snell just signed. They're always going to be little brother. Obviously, Snell just signed that 5-year deal. 182. I said 185, 182. Where are they turning? Where are the Mets going to turn? First name will be Corbin Burnes. Obviously, 2021 Cy Young winner. Had a big year with Baltimore. 32 game start, 15-9, 22 quality starts, 2.92 ERA. His WHIP was 110. The thing with Burnes is there's going to be a lot of competition. Obviously we see the Red Sox have checked in on, the Yankees have checked in on, even the Dodgers probably out on him now, but they've checked in on him too. Baltimore wants him back. The one thing I see with the Mets is their president baseball of operations, David Stearns, was with that Milwaukee team when he was part of that draft class, his first draft class had Corbin Burns. Was Corbin Burns in his first draft class? So there's that familiarity. But the suitors are going to be much. Blue Jays are in them. Blue Jays have been willing to spend, haven't been able to get the guys that are in on Soto. I'm on that side note, still talking about Soto, because this, at the end of the day, the whole offseason for all these teams is, where is Juan Soto going to end up? Where is he going to end up? That's, like I said, we've got this mapped out where I decided to do the Mets today. We did the Marlins. I gave South Florida a little love last week. We did the Marlins. I'm a little higher on the Marlins. You guys didn't tune on. I think they could be a dark horse. We did the Mets, which is in on Soto. We're going to do the Red Sox next week, Yankees. But I think Soto signs in the next 2 weeks. If Blue Jays have been willing to spend, obviously they were willing to spend for Ohtani. They're willing to spend for Soto. They're just trying to get that Blue Jays just trying to get an extra guy to add to that nice young core where they got, Vladimir Guerrero and Bo Bichette. So they've been willing to spend. So there's going to be a lot of competition for Burns, and I could see a big, a nice up there with a Garrett Cole 8-year deal, pushing $300 million. So I could see it, but the familiarity with Stearns and Burns could play big. What's the other option? Max Fried. Max Fried's another option who, had kind of a down year. He was coming off a down year, 16-11. He did have 16 quality starts, 3.25 ERA. He is 30, but he's proven. Won a World Series, was big with the Braves. Yeah, Rob. You better come on. If I'm talking Red Sox baseball and you didn't come on, I'd be a little disappointed. I take that as a shot that you better be on. That episode is set for you, so you better be on. No questions asked. But Max Fried, he's been proven, was big when the Braves were competing. He's been big. Was big. World Series in 21 with the Braves. So I think that's going to be another guy. He's got a lot of competition for that. A lot of competition for him too. The Dodgers have checked in on him. Even though they just signed Snell, they're willing to go. Snell did defer some of his money too. The Dodgers already checked in on him. The Red Sox checked in on him. Yankees have checked in on him. So, I think there's going to be a lot of competition. I think that 182, what we saw Snell get, will be similar. If not, he can get a little more, maybe a 6, 200. I think that's a very good starting point and what something Fried will get, but the competition is high. The competition is very high for those guys. You could go Jack Flaherty, who had, was good. Started off really good with the Cardinals, came down, was with the Orioles last year, not that great, and then signed that one year deal with the Tigers and had a hell of a bounce back. And they got traded to the Dodgers and was a key cog in that World Series run. Obviously, we saw him game 1 was phenomenal. Got smacked around game 2, but he was a big piece in that postseason overall. So I think that's another guy you could look at the Mets going. The Mets. I think that's another one. I think baseball comes down to pitching, and they need pitching as great as Juan Soto is. He can't win. You need pitching. So you got Corbin Burns, 30, Blake Snell, 32. So that 5-year might be more. We could see a little more for Max Fried. Max Fried, 31. He also declined that offer. So if you decline that qualifying offer, you're getting a You're going to get a first-round – that team's going to get a first-round pick. Jack Flaherty's the youngest out of them all, 29. I mean, Manayo's 33. He could be coming back. Kyle Hendricks, wow, signed that deal with them. But I think that's where you go. Severino, 31. He declined that offer too. Maybe you go for like Monta. A side would be like a step down like Frankie Montas, who had a nice year with ended up good with the Brew Crew, with the Brewers there. But I mean, this is this one thing if the Yankees don't go and get, I want Max Fried, or I would take Fried in a heartbeat. I don't think they get Fried. The one guy I want for the Yankees would be Walker Buehler, and they're in on Walker Buehler. I want Walker Buehler so bad. That guy's a gamer. His ball jumps off the hand. It is, and he's starting to. I mean, 2 Tommy John, so it's a little much, but I want Walker Buehler, and I think he'll have competition too for a 3-4 year deal. But I mean, I think Flaherty would be a good option, a solid bounce back year. But what was that? Just him playing good in a contract year, or is that something we're going to see? But he's 29, so I mean, he could get a big deal too. Coming off a World Series run with the Dodgers. So we shall see. But I think even with the Soto, if they sign Soto, Pivetta turned it down too. Yeah. I know it is a little crazy. I thought Pivetta would take that $21 million and run. No, Hal's not the boss. He's not the boss, man. He did. I mean, I thought he'd take that Pivetta. I thought he'd take it and run. I don't know what his looks are going to be like. Pitching isn't in demand. But I think even with the Soto deal, I think the Mets still get a starting pitcher. I think they re-sign Manaea. I think they go after Fried and Burns. If you got Burns, Manaea, that is a solid 1-2. Or Fried, Manaea, and then you got Cienga. I'm sorry, I'm butchering his name. And maybe I should have done a little more research how to say his name. But if he stays healthy, that's a solid 1-2-3. Probably one of the better on paper 1-2-3. On paper 1-2-3. Because you never know with baseball, with injuries like we saw with the Mets. Where are they going to go? I think Flaherty is definitely one. Are they going to go to the trade market? You got Garrett Crochet from the White Sox, has been a hot name in the trade deadline all year. He doesn't want to come out of the bullpen. He's a starting pitcher, but he's been a hot name for a while. Hey Frank, I'm gonna hit the Yankees. I see your comment. I'm gonna to finish up my Mets thought, because if I start talking about the Yankees, I'm gonna lose my train of thought like heck and get going. He's been a hot name, but I think he's going to get a significant prospect haul. But, I mean, that's a young guy who had a solid year with a very, down White Sox team. I don't think he wants to be on the White Sox anymore. Sick of loose. But, I mean, if you get a deal surrounded around, Jet Williams, shortstop who's blocked at second and short because of Lindor, Acuna, and Jeff McNeil, or Drew Gilbert, who's could be blocked because of Nimmo, and then Soto, who Gilbert, both Williams and Gilbert are right. That's going to be a solid haul just to start off. That's just a starter. You got to put a top 10 prospect in right now. So I think they got it's a solid guy, but you're going to have to start off with him. I think they got a lot of guys. I think the Mets, one thing the Mets I don't hear about, I think the Mets need to get a nice backup catcher for what's his name? Not Alvarez. I'm going to get his name. I sometimes do this, and it drives me nuts when I do this. Yeah, Alvarez. I was right because I did this last week when we were talking the Marlins, and I was talking 03, and I was talking about the center fielder, and I couldn't remember his name from that 03 team. And I end the podcast, and 10 minutes after I end, I'm sitting down watching sports, and I go, Juan Pena. I remember it the time, but I think they need a solid backup catcher. Okay, I'm gonna get in on this on the Yankees' love here. After the Mets, I think the Mets end. My opinion, I think the Mets end up getting. To recap, I think the Mets get Soto for $650 million. Is my guess. $650 million. And he will be a New York Met. And I know where some of you Yankee fans are going. I think Soto's got a lot of competition. Yankees are right in there. There's been 5 teams who have already put in offers. That's the Yankees put in an offer. The Mets put in an offer. Dodgers put in an offer. The Blue Jays put in an offer. The Red Sox put in an offer. Now, we don't know what the offers were, and we won't get that. They're keeping it pretty close to the chest. But you got to realize who is his agent, and that's Scott Boras. And what does Scott Boras do? He gets his guys paid. So I think he gets paid big. I'm saying $650 million. And I think he'll be a New York Met, and I'm fine with that. Now let's get in on some Yankees talk. I got to go back. I want to get in and on Gary. If he doesn't go to the Yankees, it's not the worst thing in the world, all right? It is not the worst thing in the world. All right? It is not the worst thing in the world. Why did we lose that World Series? It was our defense. What is Juan Soto's defense lack? It's his defense. I think he is one of the best offensive hitters in the game. All right, I think he's one of the best offensive hitters in the game. But it's his defense. You even saw that he made 2 poor defensive plays in Game 1. Game 1, Hernandez was that ball right field down the line. He takes a bad angle. They get a run from that. Second one, he kind of bobbles that ball off the right field wall. All right, and that hurt us too. I think his defense is very below average. Very below average. I think he's a DH. I don't want Juan Soto. He can leave. That's fine. He can go. I think Juan Soto did his part. I think he's already on. He's 26. This will be his 3rd or 4th team. He's already been on 3 teams. He was with the Nationals, turned down $450 million at 20 after that World Series. He was with the Padres. They shipped him off too. He was with the Yankees. Why is it Juan Soto one of the best hitters in the game and the best eye in baseball? The eye of Juan Soto is nuts. And, the guy's plate discipline is the best plate discipline I've ever seen. I love it because I was a plate discipline guy. I notice him. I'm not, obviously. When I was hitting, I loved to foul off pitches and mess with pitchers, mess with their mind. I had a catcher who told me, F you, because you'll go foul off 6 pitches and then get a base hit, and I'm still sitting here. I loved it. I thrived off that. It made my day when I heard that. And Juan Soto seems that. The guy just fouls off pitches until he gets his pitch, and we saw that in Game 5 with the Guardians. So, I think he's the best offensive hitter and best plate discipline, and we've seen that this guy's got how many walks he's had in the last 2 years. No. But I think his I think his defense is a liability. I put him at DH. I don't think it's the worst thing if the Yankees don't sign Soto. I think if they don't sign Soto, you pivot. You pivot. You pivot. I've just said it 3 times because I want Hal and Cashman to pivot. If he goes too high, which I believe he is, you pivot. You got Jason Dominguez is coming up. I would put Dominguez in center, put Judge back in right where he might be more suited, as great as Judge is. Save so many runs. Either you keep him in center, you put Dominguez in left or right, and then you go sign a left or right. You go sign an outfielder. I like Teoscar Hernandez. I think you can get him on a 3-4 year deal. I like Santander, he won't give you Juan Soto numbers, but he will give you enough power numbers while he can make up for it. Defensively, he is a liability. So that's where I like Teoscar Hernandez, who will give you those numbers. But you pivot, and you don't sign Soto as a Yankees fan. I don't want Soto. I'm fine. I've been out on Soto since the World Series. Defense is what they need. They need to be a clean defensive team, a fundamental team, and they're not that. And that stems from coaching. And that's my other thing. Fire Aaron Boone. I don't care if you got him in the World Series. Joe Girardi got us 1 game from the World Series with a team that was not as talented and then got fired the next year because he's an old school guy. He's an old school, hit you in the face baseball player. Now you got Aaron Boone, who's cool. He wants to wear his wristwatches the whole time. But I don't think it's the worst thing if they don't sign Soto. Probably be bad. That's my best guess, too. Would probably be back. But, hey, you can dream. You can dream. So I would go Santander. Maybe you get Teoscar Hernandez. Maybe they trade for Cody Bellinger. I'd be fine with both because you throw Bellinger at first base, have Santander in the outfield, go sign a third baseman. Maybe they go sign Alex Bregman and put Jazz Chisholm, who was brought in. Chisholm was brought in basically to take over for Glaber. You can put him at second. Great. Chisholm played unbelievable at third base. For a guy who never played third base, his defense was solid and saved us a lot of runs. But I would be fine with that. I want one of the solid big pitchers. I'd be very happy if they got Walker Buehler. I love Walker Buehler. I know he's had 2 Tommy Johns. But when does that guy pitch big? It's October baseball, and that's what all that matters. So I'd be super happy. And Jeff McNeil's super utilities. He's the man. I don't know what they do with them this year because Acuna's a guy. They're going to have to get him some ABs, but McNeil could play a lot of spots. I love Jeff McNeil, and that's a guy who's great play discipline too. But I don't think it's the end of the world they signed Soto. Wrapping this up, I think Soto ends up crosstown in Queens with the stepchild in Queens there in the New York Mets, $650 million. I think it shakes everything up. I'm predicting winter meetings, which is the 7th through the 9th. So that's a Saturday to Monday, I want to say. I predict he signs there. And that's where I go. Next week, we're going to have Rob Mosley on, my former co-host. Took a little break. He's going to be on next week. We're going to talk a little Red Sox offseason outlook, who they're going for. Pretty excited we'll have Rob on. He better be on because he's a Red Sox fan, so we'll be talking Red Sox baseball, so he better be on. But, hey, everybody, please remember, like, comment, subscribe. Thank you, everybody who threw a comment in. Kept me going. I love having good conversations. I love baseball. This is On Deck. I'm Russ Morgan here on FTSN. You guys have a great night.